Hello again, and welcome to the Noble Father podcast. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Theophilus, and today is, I don't know. I've just had this strange kind of day today, and if you're tuning in for the first time, we have these on audio, but we also have these on YouTube. So if you ever want to look at this face as I'm sharing this podcast, you can check us out on the YouTube channel over there. And this podcast is really about speaking from the heart. And this morning I was feeling a ton of resistance, and still am feeling a bit of resistance of not really sure what to share about. And typically whenever I go to think about my podcast, and what to talk about, I like to think about, what are the certain themes that I've seen throughout the week. And there's really two themes that really stood out to me. Last Monday I spoke about presence or blessing, and how Moses had to, was challenging, not challenging God, but just like spoke out and said, Lord, if you're not going with us, then I'd rather not go. Like, I want your presence there. If your presence is not there with us, please don't. I'm not going to go. And that was such a good tie into us as fathers, and why it was important for us to be present. And I see this in so many things in my life. This week also brought with it some, so I had a podcast release where I did, and I shouted out some people, and one of the guys there, that I shouted out, reached back out to me, and it's kind of kicked up some stuff within them. And you know and it's interesting to me, because this past Saturday we also went out to go visit a friend of ours from our church who recently suffered a stroke before Christmas. And you could just imagine something like that crazy happening, and your whole holiday gets kind of thrown into disarray. And the theme that I'm seeing between these two, because this friend that I shouted out on the debrief episode, ended up coming over, and we ended up having a conversation. It was such a visceral experience for me. You see the emotion sensing out, coming out of this person, and a part of me was I felt reassured that the work that we do at Noble Father with our meetups and holding space for fathers and allowing them a place to open up, in confidence and to just be heard, was such a valuable piece. And in both meetings, the friend coming over and us going to visit this friend in this like stroke recovery unit, I saw this in two older gentlemen, and I and my heart was breaking, as I was having both conversations, because here are these two men who I both look up to, like very, very much. I look up to both of them, and it made me wonder how much they bottled it up, how much they kept it inside, how much they didn't really speak about the things that were troubling them, because there was no space, or because there was nobody to turn to, or because the world during the times that they were growing up, were like this, or or their dads, didn't, encourage that kind of space. And how difficult it must be for somebody like that to bottle it up, and how do you release that pressure, and how some people release it, in very dramatic and devastating ways. This journey has been incredible. In a little bit more than a month and a half, we will be officially 2 years into this Noble Father journey, at least the meetups. It will be our 2-year anniversary, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal for us, right? To know that we're still going on after 2 years, and now to be thriving as a premium only community, with dads coming on daily, and with meetups and what have you. it's a reassurance for me that we're on the right path here. And what's amazing is just really been giving up this journey to God, and God has really been guiding this, and I feel, I don't feel, a lot of times I don't feel qualified to be doing what I'm doing, but God called me to do it, and it's amazing because as I look at that journey, I'm like, wow, Lord, no wonder you gave me these experiences and these talents and these past um these skills, Lord, that you've given me that enables me to do this work. um we're this journey has been amazing. You know, I've learned so much. I've met so many people and have had so many conversations. And what's amazing about it is like when I look back at the whole picture, I think like, what did I really do? Like, I feel like I was merely being obedient. I feel like anybody can be obedient, and it makes me wonder too of like, if you were in that position and you know and you leaned in. I mean, what would be possible? What could be possible? Like what would it look like? What would that journey look like for you? And that's one thing that I try to get my fathers to think about is like, you could be, you know, if you're not coming to life in what you're doing, then it's time to really think about why it is that it's not fulfilling for you. And I'm a very deep thinking person and a deep feeling person. My approach to that would always be from the inside. Like, what are you feeling on the inside? And what makes you fulfilled? Like, why do you do the work that you do, and what kind of work makes you fulfilled? One of the coolest things that is really relevant to this is nostalgia. Why is it whenever you talk about a TV show you watch growing up, you suddenly come to life, or this wonderful memory of something, and you share it with somebody, or you go back and you meet your old high school friends or your old college friends, and you talk about those memories that you had. Why does it feel so special, right? Why is it so it's such an amazing experience whenever you're with those people or having those, sharing those memories again? Well, because those things are super deeply rooted. They're inside of you, and they're pulling on your heartstring. Imagine what that would be like if you did that for work, or you're doing something that really impassioned you, right? And I'm speaking both as the person who's in there now and as a person who is out of it, because there was a time where I was looking at other people who were living this life, and they seem to have no trouble, and they'd always talk about it, right? They'll say, oh, I can't sleep at night thinking about this work, and I get up early, fired up to do this work. Excuse me. And I'm like, why are these people so fulfilled, and how can I be like that? And it wasn't until and I tried all these different things to no avail, and it never fulfilled me whenever I was using my mind to figure out these things, and or even chasing these external pursuits. They were always from the inside. When I finally leaned into that when I finally used those tools and the weaponry that I had within myself, all those things that I was good at, and leveraging those things along with the desire to serve people and an audience that I really resonated with, man, like my life changed for the better. And now I'm this person. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I almost don't recognize myself, of like, who are you, Theo? Like, you have come a long way. And my wife also recently said that about me, which is feedback that most wives probably don't get from their most husbands don't get from their wives. And the context of that was, in applying, not applying, but was asked by my church to be, an elder, and that's a big deal for me, right? And one of the first questions in this, this questionnaire that we had to go through together, it asked me, what did my wife think about it? And when I genuinely asked her about it, she was like, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised of this, right? For you, since you started on this personal development journey, you've grown as a man, you've grown as a husband, you've grown as a father, and it's like you became somebody. So it's no wonder they're seeing this and they're looking for that kind of leadership, and that is a fact that is not lost on me, and definitely one in which it spurs me on to be a better father. It spurs me on to be better and to be more present with what I've been given right now. And I've been waking up every morning and really giving up my day to the Lord, and even this podcast. As I'm sitting here, though you might not feel it, I'm struggling a little bit with this topic. And actually, what topic? It's a go with the flow, feel in the spirit, what is in my heart kind of thing, and to really sense and to feel where God is leading and where God is directing. And this has really all been about that. And if anything, this ties into the podcast I did last week, is like, Lord, if this isn't what you want, and if you're not going to be there, I don't want to go there. Which is kind of amazing. Because a few weeks back, let me see, look at my calendar, almost 2 weeks ago, I was driving to the border to finish off a biometric portion of this waiver that I need to apply for. And this is a podcast of speaking openly, and I want to share that right now is when I was in my late or early adult years, my parents thought it'd be a good idea for us to go apply for a Nexus card. And this Nexus card, it required an interview that you had to do with an officer. And so I remember me and my brother sitting there talking to the officer, and the question came up of, hey, have you ever been criminally charged for any drug related offenses? And I said no, because I genuinely haven't. But then I, for whatever reason, just truthfully went to admit that I did, some marijuana when I was a little younger, a teenager. And that, and it was fine for a while. Actually, for a few years, I was traveling okay through the border until suddenly this officer, flagged me down and said, hey, like, I can't let you in because you admitted to this, and I see this on your record, and yada, yada. And I was kind of like, confused. Anyways, so that letter that I previously got is coming to an expiration, and I needed to renew it. And so as I was driving to the border, and as I was driving there, I was, praying for the Father's community, and about like 10 minutes away, I started, to really pray for myself and ask God for direction in this application. Because, I honestly feel like I shouldn't have this on my record, and it would be good to have it off and whatever. And I came to the realization of, like, Lord, if this is like, as I'm praying for myself, I found myself like almost as if selfish, right? Like, why are you praying for yourself? Like, have you ever considered the fact that maybe God wants you to have this on your record? And that realization in my head was like, it was like a light went off. And now that I think about it, it's like, yeah, where did that come from? It was definitely not an original thought. And then suddenly this peace came over me of like, and my prayer changed instantly to like, Lord, if this is what you want from me, and you want me to have this record, or you want me to have this piece of paper to fulfill whatever will you have for me, let it be okay for me, and may your will be done through me. Not that I don't want it off my record, but if God wants me to have this on the record, then I should be totally okay with the way he sees it and the way he fulfills his will. And this is interesting, because this reminds me of something that I recently found, and And it's just this picture of this broken sign. It's, somebody obviously photoshopped it, but anyways, there's a quote in there that was so fitting, and it says, God's will doesn't have to feel good to you to be good for you. God's will doesn't have to feel good to you to be good for you. And that was the realization of like, I'm praying for this thing to be off my record, but at the same time, if God wants me to have this to fulfill some kind of purpose for him, I should be okay with that. Not everything in the world happens in accordance to his will. Nothing falls outside of it. Even human error, even decisions we make that go against what God wants, it will still account for God's will. Jonah running away, going to another city when he shouldn't, and God dictated and said you had to go to this one, is a great example of that. It still fell within his will that things would unfold the way that they did, and that was the realization for me. And so, for you, and maybe you're not a person who believes in God, I would ask you, is really to think about why you do what you do, and what do you rely on? What is your purpose here then? If there is no God, then why do you have morality, and why do you have, why do you, if I were to walk up to a little child and punch him in front of you, inherently that's wrong. If there is no God and there is no purpose, then it doesn't really matter what I do in this life. And to go even further of like, okay, so then for your life, if there is no purpose, if there is no God, if there's no right wrong, then why are we striving? What are you striving for? If everybody ends up dying and then everyone becomes dust, what's the point? Why am I even doing this? Why are you even listening to this podcast? And why are you a dad? And why do you feel like you need to take care of your children? Then you should just go and do whatever. And deep down, I feel like deep down, and not to run away from that. And I want to open myself up to that. Like, if you have any questions about any of the things that you're struggling with, like, feel free to reach out to me. I may have grown up in the church, but I left for a bit, and I've always tried to search and to figure out for myself what that means. And so I kind of understand, and I have good knowledge and good wisdom, and God has blessed me in such a way with words and to tackle deep-rooted, deep-seated issues. And I just want to help you. I want to help everybody, every father, to find their way, because the world that my son and my daughter is going to grow up in is the world that your kids will grow up in. And so the actions that my children take in this world is going to very much affect the world that your children are going to grow up in, and affect the world that your grandchildren are going to grow up in, or my grandchildren are going to grow up in. And so we are in this symbiotic relationship. What I do with my kids affects what happens with your kids, and we need each other. We are all part of one body, and I am not in a place to say you are and you are not, and what have you. And, I hope this podcast doesn't, most of my episodes aren't like this. Today's just been a bit of a weird day. Got on my computer. As soon as I sat on, somebody gave me a phone call and told me that they needed a favor for me, and they were at the airport and they had forgotten their passport. And, I was so ready and so fired up to do my day. But, such is God's will, right? Is that I had an idea of what my day was going to look like, but God had a different idea, and I had to be okay with it. And now here I am and sharing this, and I definitely appreciate the platform. I definitely appreciate that you're here listening to this. And if you're interested in our community, you can check us out on Discord. You can find the link. Actually, message me. I will send you the link, and you'd be able to try our community for 30 days. We do meetups on Mondays for Bible study, and we also do a Thursday regular weekly meetup where fathers can share and talk openly about situations and things in life. That's really what this whole community is all about. We're looking to do retreats as well. We're still planning what the summer one looks like. I've been feeling a bit of resistance on that front, but I'm going to get cracking on those, and that's just a part of what it means to be a noble father. And part of the noble father community is to be intentional and present. And so I just want to thank you for joining us for this podcast. Remember to stay present, because we're not promised tomorrow, and stay noble. Take care.